Hi, I'm Regina Fidium. I'm a special ed 100 teacher and your niece. So it makes it easy for you to know who's interviewing you.
Yes.
Can you tell my class a little bit about who you are and what you taught and where you taught at?
Sure. I'm Joan Artizzoni, and I first started teaching with multiply disabled kids, and I did that for about 16 years, some in Pennsylvania and some up here in New York. And for the last 20 years, I worked with in co-teaching at Tri-Valley Central School up here in New York. Awesome. And I had anywhere from kindergarten up through 6th grade is what I taught. I actually did some high school as well.
Yep, I was going to say you've kind of covered all the spans of disabilities and age ranges since I remember since I was a little kid. Always, you were always doing something different. So now, when you co-taught, can you tell me a little bit about the model that you used?
Yeah, sure. Within the past 20 years, I've used every single model. Some within a day could use every single model of the 6 models, all depending on who the co-teacher was, my co-teacher, and our relationship, because it's kind of like you need to really get to know that person and work well with them, have the same teaching philosophies, overall. Some of the people that I worked with, it worked really well, and we had a great relationship, and it was just like we could finish each other's sentences, and we did a lot of the actual co-teaching. There were other times where I always worked with great general ed teachers, but some of them weren't quite as comfortable with doing the co-teaching model, so a lot of the times we might parallel teach, where I would take a group, more than a half of the group on one end of the room, and she would take the other half of the group, and we would do the same lesson. A lot of the times, for those people who really weren't as comfortable with the going back and forth kind of thing, they preferred me taking some of the kids out or working with them, on the side of the room and doing the modifications just for those special ed kids. So depending on what the students' needs were and what they felt comfortable with and what the general ed teacher felt comfortable with, it kind of varied. So
yeah. So last week I introduced IEPs to my class, and next week we're actually going to be doing a mock IEP meeting. This week we're just delving into learning disabilities and co-teaching and universal design for learning. So I know that you've been, when you came into public school, that was kind of at the beginning of the response to intervention movement, right?
Yes. And actually in the beginning, I did a lot of that as well. Our laws in New York changed after a while, and special ed teachers weren't allowed to do response to intervention. But for quite a few years, I did that as well, where I had, the one year I had a special class for language arts and math, and then I did RTI small group with 3 different grade levels throughout the day.
So now when you're teaching in a learning support classroom where the students are included, what kind of disabilities do you typically see? Like the most, I wouldn't say, I'm looking to see what are the general most common ones you would see in a classroom?
Mostly learning disabled. We have had some emotionally disturbed. We've had some kids on the spectrum. But really mostly learning disabled. And did have a deaf student once.
Do you see more reading disabilities, math disabilities, or do you see more combined?
Combined, but really most within the reading part, reading seemed to be the really most difficult thing for most of the kids. I've even had kids that were in 6th grade reading on a 1st grade level.
Right.
Still included in the classroom, just giving them a lot of modifications.
I was going to say, as their special ed support, you would work to help with the modifications that are required on that IEP, correct?
Yes.
So as the special educator, Who was involved in your IEP meetings usually?
Our chairperson, and then legally it had to be the chairperson, a special ed person, and the general ed teacher. But speech, PT, OT, all of those, if they were receiving those therapies, they were involved. Sometimes the counselor, if they needed counseling, parents, family members, and sometimes the students, depending on where they were at and if they
Age or
could handle.
ability, correct?
Yeah.
What I wanted to know a little bit about, you already talked about this, but I stressed family relationships with class last week and how important it is for us to recognize that the families are changing so quickly as what we think of as a family has changed. Do most of your students come from typical families, or are they usually from single home families or from adopted families, or is it a mix across the board?
A mix across the board, but up here in Sullivan County, it's a very low income area. We have this one trailer park actually that within our school district that those students were very low income. They needed a lot of, like, sometimes their parents may even be in prison. So it was a lot of back and forth and a lot of counseling, really.
Right. Yeah, I feel the same way as a special ed teacher. Sometimes we become that school parent to those kids, and we have to support them in a lot of areas, such as their socioeconomic status. And I personally, I know for a fact that you always were helpful in helping your students out. Does your school provide anything like clothing or food drives for needy students?
Yes, we have, the food drives, the typical for the holidays, but we also do, it's called a backpack program, where people within the community and mostly us teachers would adopt a backpack, and we would fill it with snacks and spaghetti and peanut butter and those type of things, SpaghettiOs, all of those type of things that we would give. That we would give the kids every 2 weeks.
Awesome.
Yeah, and then just within the classroom, we provided snacks ourselves.
Right.
Each day, because they were hungry.
Yep.
They all get hungry.
Yeah, a hungry belly doesn't make for a good learner.
Yeah.
So out of your years of experience, can you just tell me some of one of your favorite moments as a teacher? What made you the happiest as a teacher? It doesn't have to be a specific moment, but what drove you as a teacher?
Well, just really getting to know the kids and getting their respect and their love, and just when they would come in and just attack you, hugging you because they were so happy to be in school and happy to be learning, and just seeing those light bulbs go off when they finally get something and I could do this. It's just
light bulb moments amazing. Are my favorite too.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, it is. What inspired you to be a teacher?
My brother, Bobby, was back then they called it severe and profound retardation, and we're really dated back then.
Well, you know what? Our students watched a video last week about something called Willowbrook, an institution.
Yes.
They learned about how far we've come.
Yes. Oh boy, have we come very far. Well, anyway, my brother, who was 17 months younger than me, was considered mentally retarded back then. And he was my favorite person in the whole wide world. And that's definitely what did it, because he was awesome and it was fun hanging out with him and his friends. So
you got to do that as a career. That sounds pretty good to me.
And you did too.
And I do too. If my class hasn't figured this out yet, I've followed in your footsteps quite a bit.
Yes, I love it.
Yes. So do you have any advice? This is my last question for you. Do you have any advice for future educators? So the class that we're speaking to right now, they are going to be general educators. They're going to be special educators, there are going to be music educators, there are going to be art educators. They're
Good.
all across the board. Just some good
Awesome.
advice for any teacher.
Awesome. Have fun. Have fun. Be flexible. You have to be flexible. I mean, you know, working with everybody that you work with and the different types of students, but really just enjoy what you do and have fun.
Awesome. Thank you, Joan. We appreciate you joining us today in class.
Sure.
And I
Anytime.
hope you have a wonderful day. And
You
Joan
too.
is very, very luckily retired now. So this is her
Yes.
second year of not being a teacher
Yes.
after her whole life of teaching.
I
So
got out just
doesn't-
in time before the COVID-19 craziness.
Yes. So
Yeah.
we are all learning in a hybrid format. We're in
Yes.
class a couple times a week, and we're also online. So this will be an
That's
online module next week. So
Okay.
we appreciate you joining us.
Well, thanks for having me.
Thank you.